Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for coming to our webinar today. I hope everyone has had a nice week so far. Today, we're very happy to have Barry Rosen, Uffe Sorensen, and Martin Donnelly from IBM with us for the IBM Presents the IBM Notes and Domino Roadmap webinar. This webinar is brought to you as part of the free monthly webinar series from Team Studio and TLCC. My name is Courtney. I'm the marketing manager at Team Studio, and I'm here today helping to run this webinar. Howard Greenberg and Paul Della from TLCC are joining me today, and the three of us are your hosts. Also on this call, we have Nigel Cheshire, CEO at Team Studio. He's going to say a few words in just a bit about a brand new product we launched this week. And last but not least, we have Adam Kessner from IBM on the call today, helping to run the Q&A. Here at Team Studio, we provide software tools for Notes and Domino professionals. We celebrated our 20th year in business this year. Some of our most well-known tools are Configurator, Chow, and Analyzer. We're continuing to update these products. We released edition 32.0 over the summer, and now we're very excited to debut a brand new tool with you. Nigel is going to share the inspiration behind why we built this tool and then explain what it does.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. So I know you're here to hear about the IBM roadmap, not the Team Studio roadmap, but they told me that I do get a little here's a message from our sponsor slot, and I promise to keep this very brief. Here at Team Studio, we've been helping our customers build and maintain customized notes applications for more than 20 years. One of the most remarkable things about Notes and Domino as an application development platform is that for all of that time, IBM's managed to maintain backwards compatibility. In other words, no one has ever been forced to rewrite their notes application just because a new version of the platform came out. So that's great for keeping maintenance costs under control, but we're kind of at an inflection point now where I would say most organizations want to be able to get web and mobile access to their business applications. That whole concept tends to get lumped under the heading of application modernization. Now, one of the other great things about Notes and Domino is that for years it was really easy for almost anyone to build a workgroup application. That means that today there are many, many notes applications that need to be modernized, and many organizations don't know what applications they've got, who is using them, how complex they are, and what their value to the business is. So, it might not surprise you to learn that's what our new product, Team Studio Advisor, helps you to sort through. Advisor will scan through your application catalogs, find all the applications, measure their business usage, record the business value, and analyze the complexity of the application, and then put all of those applications into buckets with a recommendation as to what you should do with each one of them. So, just to be clear, it doesn't magically try and modernize all of your applications for you, but it tells you what you've got and what you should do with each app. So my time is probably up. If any of this rings a bell or sounds interesting, please take a look at our website, www.teamstudio.com/advisor. Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you, Nigel. So now I would like to pass the controls over to Howard Greenberg at TLCC so he can go over some administrative points, like how to ask questions, and then we'll give Barry, Uffe, and Martin the floor. I'm passing the controls over to you now, Howard.
Oh, thank you, Courtney. And I'd like to especially thank Nigel, not only for his introduction, but also for co-sponsoring these webinars for the last couple of years with TLCC. Team Studio is an integral part of bringing these webinars to the community, and so for that I would like to thank Nigel and Courtney and the rest of the crew at Team Studio. Hopefully you're seeing my screen.
Yes, we are, Howard.
Oh, thanks, Paul. And that voice you heard is my partner here at TLCC, Paul Della. Paul and I are basically our TLCC, and many of you know us from our self-paced courses for Notes and Domino and XPages for developers, admins, and users. Many of you have taken our very popular free demo course, which is an introduction to Domino Designer, and we also have a Introduction to XPages course. Those are totally free, and you take them using your Notes client just like all our other TLCC courses. Many of you don't know that TLCC also offers mentoring services. So Paul and I spend a lot of our time helping folks at our clients develop, their XPages applications, and more importantly, their expertise in XPages development. We can also do instructor-led classes, private classes that we can come on site to your location. And finally, we've been spending the majority of our time the last year or two in developing applications for our clients. So as part of that, we've done a lot of work with converting Notes client applications to the web, and in the process utilizing Bootstrap to make it a mobile-enabled application, and modernizing old Domino web applications that were developed, using old Domino web techniques from, back in the R5 days. We've also done quite a bit of work in interfacing with back-end data systems, relational database systems. And Paul and I, being instructors for many years, also have the capability and skills to provide that transfer of skills to you, your team, as we go about developing the application. So if you're interested in learning more about TLCC or courses, just let Paul and I know. Upcoming webinars, we have one scheduled for December. I believe it's December 13th. And we have Paul Withers is going to do a session that he did at Connect last year, where he's going to discuss several tips and techniques in troubleshooting things that you might find when you're developing XPages. And so that's December 13th. You can sign up at the link on the screen. Also, you will see on that web page a link to all our previous webinars. We record all our webinars, and a link to all the recordings and the slides and demo databases is available at our site. So it's a great resource for anyone who wants to go back and get some education on one of the topics we covered previously. Also, a reminder that the IBM Champion nominations are open through November 14th. The links are on these slides, which you are going to get in a few days. So please, if there's someone you think has contributed to the community, please take the time to nominate them. And these would be people who might have spoken at conferences or are very helpful in forums or on Stack Overflow or host videos, hint, hint, or anyone else who you think just goes the extra mile in helping out the community. So as far as asking questions, there's a link or a button in the GoToWebinar interface. It's if you're not seeing the GoToWebinar interface, you probably see a little ribbon bar, and there's a little orange arrow. You can use that to expand and get the interface. And in that interface, there's a questions pane. So you can ask your questions in the questions pane, but we will respond to them verbally at the end of the webinar. Now, don't be too quick to ask your questions, and the reason I say that is that Barry and Uffe and Martin have said that they believe they're going to cover just about all your questions, and so if they don't get to your question in the first half an hour of the webinar, chances are they might get to it as they drill down into more details. So as we get towards the end, if your question still has not been answered, please go ahead and ask it in the questions pane, and we are going to allow plenty of time for questions at the end. So with that, I'd like to introduce Barry, Uffe, and Martin. Uffe's going to kick off the session, and so I'm going to pass controls over to you, Uffe.
Thank you, Howard. Can you hear me well?
I hear you fine.
Good. And then I will swap screens here.
Yep, we're seeing your screen.
Yep, and that should now, if I can do this stuff, yes. Good. So I would like to, first of all, thanks to Nigel and Howard and Team Studio and TLCC in general for arranging this stuff and for inviting Barry, Martin, and I to actually go through what we all believe is a very critical juncture in what we're doing on Notes and Domino and Verse, and going through the roadmap that we're pursuing right now, and what's going to happen with the platform going forward, because we made some announcements recently, and we are working on actually publishing appropriate roadmaps for what we do, and we are very keen, of course, on sharing this with all of you as appropriate. The usual disclaimer applies that you know, yes, we talk about plans, we talk about dates, but they can be changed at our discretion. It is just for planning purposes, because there may be many things beyond our control that would actually mean that we change our directions and so forth. You all know this disclaimer, you've seen it before. But what we want to do today is go through a couple of key items. First, I want to spend a few minutes on Verse. Why did we do Verse? What is it? Where are we taking Verse? And we're going to focus on the continued investment in Notes and Domino. We will go through precisely what is it we have announced, what are we doing in terms of future support for Notes and Domino, what are we doing with providing Verse on-premises as an extension to Domino, what are the actual enhancements we're going to build into Notes and Domino going forward, the roadmap, and we're going to dive into the application side, and in particular also look at the XPages on where we are and what's happening in that area. And we'll show you also some of the transition from what we do on OpenNTF into actually productizing what you've seen there. So I think that number of very important news that we're going to go through here. I put the statement in here, and as Howard said, that you know, maybe hold off your questions a little bit, but we know you have a lot of questions. We have been doing similar presentations in other contexts lately, and we found that people do have a lot of questions, but since you cannot interrupt me here, I don't worry about when you ask questions or not, but I just suggest that we know that we are covering a lot of things, so if you have some burning questions pertaining to what's happening on the roadmap, wait asking it till we have covered the roadmap. If you want to have some questions or have burning questions about XPages, just hang on until we cover the XPages side, because in all likelihood we are going to cover quite a lot of the questions you have. But at the end of the day, we want to make absolutely sure that all your questions will have been answered. So anything you haven't heard about during this presentation, please chime in with a question, and we will get you an answer. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into it. A while ago in IBM, we looked at what is email. Why do we have email? What should it be? What does it look like? Where should it go? And we have done a lot of things with email, and it's safe to say that the predominant email clients from a business viewpoint have been Notes and Outlook, and pretty much still is Notes and Outlook with some variations. However, we believe that there are better ways of driving email, and we started a lot of work on what we call social mail a couple of years ago, where we realized that we needed a better integration and a more meaningful way for people to manage their day-to-day business than just a flooded inbox. And we want to take advantage of some of the analytics capabilities that we're building to try to make sure that mail could start understanding you rather than you would have to understand the mail, in terms of make sure that things get presented in a way that's more meaningful to users and help them do the day-to-day business. Get rid of a lot of the clutter on the desktop and get some clarity to what's going on, allow you to focus on key things, and certainly also, as part of all of this, allow you to integrate and work together with some of the key social tools, so your overall collaboration experience becomes not a set of disjointed tools, but a holistic experience on how to actually collaborate and get your work done. We did that. We built Verse. I'm sure some of you are using Verse or have been using Verse. I can say that by now we have the entire IBM population is up on Verse. we did a dramatic project in 2015 where we, over 7 months, onboarded 500,000 people onto our Verse cloud offering. In itself, that's a fabulous project that you can actually onboard so many people in such a short time on a cloud solution. That's actually quite impressive, so we're proud of that. It also shows the resilience of the platform, and also shows our ability to actually onboard major workloads to this cloud platform. Now, the interesting thing here was actually more what has happened and the way people reacted to it. And of course, doing something for 500,000 people, some will like it, some will not, but overall, we've had a very good experience on doing this. We said a couple of things we wanted to do, and when I talk about mail that understands you, the idea here is that we want to make sure that you now have mail that works for you, and we have designed the whole thing for mobile devices. We've designed it to work in browsers, and we now have designed it to make it available in our cloud backend, but also with an on-premises Domino backend, and still using the various analytics and search capabilities that you need to optimize your day. One of the important things here is, and actually that's a little bit of soul searching here. We've done a lot of things in IBM over the past couple of years, and I'm sure some of you recall that back in the middle of the zeros, we started building iNotes, and iNotes as being a browser-based experience. But at the point in time, we thought that what we needed to do was build a browser-based experience that was sort of identical to the rich client desktop experience. So iNotes should look as much as possible like Notes. And we have declared victory because iNotes actually behaves like, looks like, and acts like a Notes-rich client, except it's a browser-delivered experience. That does not help a lot in a modern world where there's a complete shift in where you do integration and where you do user interfaces. In the middle of the zeros, we used the client as the integration platform. That was appropriate because that's where things happen and you access things from that client side, and that was an appropriate way forward. 10 years later, that paradigm has shifted, so the integration is through a whole set of services that people need to consume in a holistic way. And by the way, more users than not are using tablets or smartphones to access their collaborative environments. So we needed a complete switch here, and we think that's exactly what we have achieved right now with Verse, and the feedback from internal IBM, from our customers, certainly confirms that. We have provided a see what you need interface. You can focus on what matters most, and we're providing integration with a number of the social capabilities so that you have a free flow between using the social tools and using the email. So email is not a distinct tool that you use for certain purposes, but works holistically with like file sharing, so that you have a better way of managing how you share information throughout the organization and throughout the extended enterprise. So we believe that we've pretty much done this. I'm not going to really go through all the details of Verse. I'm sure you have all seen some demos of Verse. Otherwise, we can provide you some material if you haven't seen it yet. But you should have. I just want to show a few things in the screenshot. Like, on the top of the screen, we have this important to me bar, which actually is a fundamental transformation of email, because one of the things we discovered when we started looking at what email is, and when we decided to not have programmers build a mail client, but have industrial designers build a mail client, was they started trying to understand what is mail really. We thought it was a succession of emails that you needed to respond to and work with. They said, no, what you have is conversations with a whole range of people. You just do it at the same time. So we switched the whole paradigm to looking at who you're conversing with and why you're doing that. and actually focusing on who are important to you and using the appropriate analytics to highlight the people that are most important to you based on your actions and based on what we learn from you in what you do. So that actually led us to quite a lot of things, and if we ask IBMers what their favorite features was this important to me part is critical. They also like the modern interface, of course. We got a much better search engine that allow you to drill down on searches, and the calendar bar, where you have the calendar just bar on the bottom of your screen. Yes, you can still get a full calendar view, but the point is that you can look at progression of time in a much more integrated way with what you do. And then one feature that people really come to like is waiting for and needs actions. So instead of you writing little notes on a piece of paper on what you're able to do, or create some flagging system on follow-up stuff, which is not really working well, you simply have an ability to say that this is something you're waiting for feedback on, or you read something that needs action, so it in Verse will remember what you need to do. Getting some feedback from some people, there was a lot of people that basically said that first why is it there? But we found that a lot of features, which was introduced by the industrial designers rather than the programmers, people basically say, I didn't know I needed this, but after a few minutes they suddenly find this very essential. And that's why we have seen a very key transformation in all of IBM in switching to using this technology. We have been very proud of doing this, and we also want to make sure that we take this further, because we do believe that this is an essential way of changing this fundamental email paradigm that we all live under and make it available in a better way throughout the devices that you work with. So let me step back and let's have an overall look at the investments that IBM is doing now on Notes and Domino, and we will just come back to Verse On-premises in a few minutes, but let me just step back and look at the overall investments that are happening. We made a very key announcement a few weeks ago on September 12th, where we basically made a support extension announcement. And you're going to say, what on earth is that? Well, in IBM in the past, or still, we have a set of terms and conditions that are pretty much tied up around versions and release numbers within versions for our products. And in particular for support, subscription support for our products, we have had this way of managing support periods, whereas whenever we did a major new release, we would reset all the support counters. So our practices were that if we do a new major release, we would give you another 5 years of subscription support for that particular release, and beyond those 5 years, you could acquire an extended support if you so wanted for at least another 3 years. We have decided that although that it's a while ago we did the last major release of Notes and Domino, because it was a 901, which, as you now know, is about almost 2 years old, and sort of we've been treading water here on what to do. We wanted to make sure that people understand that we're pretty much moving Notes and Domino forward. And the best way we could do that, we think, was actually making a new process for shipping Notes and Domino updates. So as we're not going to go do a new version and a new release, because it is actually dramatically costly to do a product release or product version, we'll much rather spend the investment on building new features and capabilities rather than just doing a new version number. So we decided that to make sure that people understood that this is happening, we simply would announce an extended service. So if we had done a new version and announced a new version here, we would have extended support until at least 2021. So what we've announced here is that we will extend Notes and Domino support until at least 2021. It's not an end date. It just says, as any new release would have done, that support is extended at least until 5 years after the announced date, which is then in 2021. So that's one of the major news in here. So let's talk about how we're going to go do this. We're going to go onto a process of continuous improvements for Notes and Domino. We're no longer going to do the normal Passport Advantage version release stuff. As I said, we're simply going to an incremental delivery model and use feature packs as a way of delivering it. So we are basically, extending support until at least 2021. And by the way, we have now shipped Feature Pack 7 that was released in September 2016. We're scheduling, Feature Pack 8 for first quarter next year and so forth. You will see the roadmap for that a little later. And a lot of the features that we have discussed and in many ways, publicized earlier as like a Notes Domino 902 release, some of the things have been shipped already. We'll show you that. And some will be shipped through feature packs. And we will discuss what that roadmap looked like and how we get that to market. The other part of the investment was actually doing Verse On-premises, and the target availability date is in December this year. So in a month about, we're going to make Verse On-premises available, and we believe it's a very, very important step forward for the Notes Domino platform. We intend to make it available. We haven't announced the entitlement yet for Notes and Domino with Verse On-premises, but we intend to make sure that anyone on active subscription and support or having any dual entitlement type licensing, so they have active maintenance on their Notes and Domino environment, that they actually will have the entitlement to simply install Verse On-premises. And it is a simple, Passport Advantage download, and you can add Verse to your Domino installation. I'll show you that in a few minutes. There's one thing that's important to understand also about Verse, is that a number of the social features in Verse, they're actually dependent on having connections, and connections at release 5.5, version 5 release 5 available. And there are a number of features in Verse that will actually not be present or simply not exist if you don't have connections also. Now, you don't need to go buy licensing you don't have if you don't have connections already, because the connections entitlement that you already have with Notes and Domino has been upgraded with Feature Pack 7, so that you now, with Notes and Domino, have the entitlement to use Connections 5.5 release for files, file sync and share, and for profiles to manage user profiles and so forth. And those are exactly the functions that are inherently used by Verse also in delivering the full user experience of what Verse is today in the cloud. It will be also on premises. Another investment that we have completed this year is the acronym, the IMSMO, the IBM Mail Support for Microsoft Outlook, where we have now extended Outlook support both on premises and in the cloud for all the Outlook releases. So we support Outlook 2010, 2013, and 2016, connected either to our cloud mail service or to Domino on premises. On the application side, we've sort of started lifting the veils a little bit on Application Next. And you have seen that the Bluemix runtime for XPages was released in second quarter, and more will happen. We'll talk a little bit more about it later today, but there will be much more about the whole aspect of application modernization and updated tooling around that from IBM and what we're going to do. And you're going to see much more around that during the Connect 2017 event in San Francisco in February next year. But there are a number of platform updates that are very key and a key element also of the whole modernization of that platform that are planned through some of the near-term feature packs, as we will discuss and show you a little later. Feature packs. So we want to accelerate the delivery of the features into the platform, and we changed the approach simply to be able to deliver like quarterly or almost quarterly or maybe slightly less than quarterly, but consider it like a 3-4 month schedule to deliver feature packs. There are some core technical elements that are required to support the whole set of applications that were earlier considered for the 902 release, as I mentioned, and they will actually come out as feature packs, and we'll show you the roadmap for that, as I mentioned. One of the important things here is that having a very fast incremental upgrade also allow us to have a simple nomenclature we can talk about and showing enhancements without doing very costly version and release naming or upgrades. We're also going to make sure that the feature pack number becomes visible and linked to Notes Domino on our public web pages, so that you can actually track and follow on what's going on. And I certainly know that a number of people have asked me and others on how to explain to their senior management that you know, this is a modern platform, because or justifying spending money on some upgrades because, you know, there's no new release and there's no visibility of having a new release because it just, you know, it happened at a much slower pace, and there's no way of showing that there are increments happening that can be used whenever needed. Some people ask the question that since we go to version feature packs rather than versions and releases, what does that mean if you have a professional certification? If you're certified for 901 Notes and Domino, what does that mean if we start doing feature pack 8, feature pack 9, feature pack 10? And we will resolve that. We haven't resolved it yet, but there will be some updates in that area. Updates to templates will continue to happen, but they'll be separate but aligned with the next closest feature pack release, so that we will bundle like the template updates, and they'll happen at the same time as the feature pack release, but still be a separate availability. It's not only Notes and Domino, Notes and Domino that's going onto this model. We're also changing the same time delivery model to the same feature pack model, and there will be more discussed about that at Connect 2017. But it's a model that we think is much more appropriate in a modern day environment, and we have certainly seen that a number of other vendors have adopted a similar type way of doing it. There's another thing I'd like to mention here, which is an important part of what we're doing, is that from another announcement from September 6th, we have actually locked down the Passport Advantage download sites. It was so that for Notes and Domino, we have overcommitted and over-delivered, if you will, on what was the actual Passport Advantage terms and conditions in terms of subscription and support. Because once you had access to the download, you could continue to download anything whenever you wanted it. However, we are now doing the same thing as other brands in IBM, or like any of our competitors are doing. If you don't have an appropriate maintenance in terms of subscription and support for your base software entitlements, you actually do not have access to any updates or any fixes, because only if you really have the continued subscription and support will you be able to receive continued fixes and updates. So that's a little bit of a change, contrary to what we did in the past. Also saying that unless you actually have access subscription and support, you will not be able to download coming feature packs as we go forward. And that's a change that we did in line with the rest of IBM Software Group, and also in line with as I mentioned, our competitors in the business. Let me switch back again to Verse, and let's take a little look at Verse On-premises. We are making it available, and your Verse On-premises user interface is exactly the same rich experience as a Verse user in the cloud is enjoying today. It is the same code, and it is the same experience. And the way you deploy it on premises, it's simply you install an upgrade, and that will do the search capabilities, and that will use an API-based access to use some of the connections functions. So you simply install those upgrades, and then you're in the air. General availability, as I mentioned earlier, is still expected in December 2016. I believe that some of you are part of the beta program that we are running. We have a beta 2 that has been out there now. The feedback that I've been getting from some of the beta customers are that they really like this user interface, and it works perfectly well with Domino. And another good little piece of information is that it seems that the user load from a Verse on-premises user is similar to an iNotes user, which is what you might expect anyway, as it's using some of the APIs and interfaces in Domino to build it. But it's nice to see that we have confirmed that. That says that if you already have a deployment where you use iNotes, and I certainly recommend that you switch from iNotes to Verse and start using Verse broader for your users, you have a predictable workload, and you may already have that covered by using iNotes. And again, entitlement is intended to be if you have any of the licensing types talked about here that all include Notes and Domino in one way or the other, and if it's an active subscription, you simply have access to Verse. The high-level architecture is sort of kept in this picture, and as I said, there's some existing stuff, which is Domino, and it's going to be Domino at the feature pack 7 level. That's going to be required for this, and then you need to install the additional things with Domino, which is the Verse user interface, which is also existing stuff because it's exactly a clone of what we have in the cloud. And then you need to use Connections 5.5 at the fixed pack 1 level to use the files and profiles and business cards. Also file preview, because included with this is also an entitlement to use IBM Docs along with Connections, so that you have the ability to do file preview inside Verse of attachments and so forth. And then we add some new stuff, which is the components you download in addition from Passport Advantage, the API interface between Domino and Connections, and the whole search upgrade set of capabilities that sits on your Domino server. Again, Connections 5.5, you really want to have that together with this, because that's how you get the full experience. And as I said earlier, you already have the entitlement to Connections 5.5 and the use of IBM Docs for previewing files. Again, you know that the load is going to be about the same as iNotes and doesn't require any duplication of mail files like you do, for instance, for Traveler. It just serves your mail directly up to the Verse user interface. There are a couple of things that people have been asking for already also in the beta program, which is how can they customize the user interface of the Verse set of capabilities. And one of the things we're doing, and that's part of our roadmap, is that for the cloud setup of Verse, we are providing a number of customization and extension options here in fourth quarter for Verse in the cloud, and those same features will also be harvested from the cloud and made available to our on-premises capabilities at a subsequent upgrade in one of the feature packs coming forward. In general, we want to make sure that there's a continuous application of cloud features to Verse on-premises, so would make sense for any major new things that we do with cloud on cloud will be actually also shipped in a Verse on-premises subsequent release where it makes sense to package it. There's also another thing that I've been asking a lot is that after GA, we will explore integrating same-time awareness and chat and other applications and solutions into that Verse user interface. Our key priority right now is shipping Verse with all the capabilities that it already have in December of 2016, so you can extend that Verse experience to your Domino users. For the cloud side, we are planning quite a number of cognitive capabilities where we use IBM Watson to induce a lot of assistance to users using Verse. Personal assistance, expert advice, and other kinds of capabilities that we're introducing with IBM Watson. Those features are unique to the cloud, and at this point in time, we have no plan on retrofitting those cloud users into the on-premises offering, because it would be sort of a moot point. Because one of the reasons that you may not be using our public cloud offering is because of your specific legal issues or legal concerns about data protection, and if you were to use Watson to help you, you would have to have Watson analyze and read your data anyway, and that would say that you would have to push it to the cloud for Watson to digest it. So that does not seem to be the relevant way then here. So for the time being, cognitive capabilities that we're providing in Verse is going to be cloud only, and no plans on doing that on premises, at least not for the time being. So I also mentioned the other thing we invested was on the Microsoft Outlook stuff, where we made sure that we upgraded to support all the features of Outlook. So you now have a seamless way of running notes, iNotes, Verse On-premises, and Outlook clients in one environment, and that should be also a very big advantage to the overall strategy that we're pursuing on clients. So what I'd like to do is to quickly first say that we are going to talk about the investment roadmap here, but I'd like to turn the word over to Barry to do that. And I need... No, Barry, can you hear me?
We will switch the controls over to Barry.
No, I will still control the presentation. You just need to speak.
Oh, okay, got you.
Barry,
Okay.
you're muted.
Not sure exactly
I am
why.
muted you, Barry. Try speaking.
Why did I lost the control panel, but you can still see the slides, I hope.
Yeah, we're seeing the slides. It's on the investment roadmap.
Yeah,
and
good.
Barry should be unmuted. I don't know, Barry, are you there? Unless you're muted, Barry, maybe you have the mute button on your phone.
Otherwise, while Barry gets unmuted, or dial in again, I don't know what's needed, but maybe Martin or Adam, you could ping Barry and make sure. Anyway, the roadmap as it looks right now takes us through at least 2021. It's not an end date, it's just the current committed date for support and subscription, but that doesn't say that we couldn't change that and extend that later. This is just what we have committed so far. We will provide continuous improvements to Notes and Domino throughout this period, and sort of starting here in 2016. What we will do is, you saw that we started shipping the feature pack 7 here in September. That provides a number of updates. We will go through what those are in a few seconds. I just wanted to have the whole view of the roadmap here. As part of the announcement, we also made a couple of other key announcements. We basically focus on a fewer set of platforms. We will continue to support all the current platforms that run Domino and Notes on today. So any of the platforms you have today will continually be supported through at least 2021.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Barry.
Ah, there we go. Okay, finally, it's working. Thanks. Sorry for the technical difficulties there, folks.
You want to take over here?
Sure, if you don't mind, that would be great. And before we get started here, I'd like to talk about the iPhone 7. So, nope, just a joke. I was looking at Twitter before this presentation. So, anyways, I will take over. Thank you all. Thank you, Uffe. Let's kind of get into the meat of the discussion here. We're going to talk specifically about Notes and Domino roadmap, what we're doing here, what to expect in the feature packs going forward, and how we would like to continually deliver features through this new program that we're doing here. So I'm sure as Uffe has started here, this is kind of our roadmap here. You know, we are on track to deliver Verse On-premises in December, and then starting in first quarter of next year, we will be delivering new feature packs, and there will be new features as well as fixes in these ongoing feature packs. We did release what we did call Fix Pack 7 in September. It did still contain features. It was named Fix Pack. We are going forward with the new name starting in Feature Pack 8. So starting in 8, you will see the new nomenclature of feature packs. So Uffe, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. You know, so as we've been discussing, what we'd like to continue doing is giving you continuous improvements. You know, we're aligning ourselves with a lot of what the rest of the industry is doing. One of the examples that we like to use is Windows 10. You know, Windows 10 is probably the last Windows release, but you will still continue to get updates even though it will still be called Windows 10. So we're adopting a very similar approach. And as I mentioned, you know, Fix Pack 7 was released in September, and we have Feature Pack 8, which we're sizing currently to ship in Q1. So what you'll see on the next couple slides will actually get into some of the features that were planned for the next couple of feature packs. Also, a lot of the previously announced enhancements had been delivered. We'll show a slide on that as well. I'm going to talk briefly about platform support. We've made a decision, and this is at the software group level, to reduce the number of platforms that we are going to be supporting moving forward. Now, what this means is that any new offerings that we release into market will be probably will only be supported on Red Hat Linux, Windows, AIX, iSeries, and that's about it. But what that does mean is all current platforms, which is Notes Domino 901, will remain fully supported through 2021 on their current platforms. So we will be discussing some changes as well and some additions of platforms for Feature Pack 8. This is in discussion now. It is not committed. We are looking for approval by the end of the month internally with our internal process. We're looking to add Windows 2016 Server. We'll probably look to drop WinXP on the client side and do some updates also with the Mac OSs that we support. So look for some changes in Feature Pack 8, and once we have those locked down, we'll start to announce those at conferences and publicly. We're still working on that internally to get approval on that. So next slide, please. Next slide, Uffe.
That one?
Yes. Okay. So recently, you know, as we covered, we did announce the 901 extension. I just want to go ahead and just briefly touch on that as well. And then we did announce the 85X end of life. So here, let's talk about and show. You can go to the next one.
You know, there was a. It takes much longer to refresh the broadcast than I thought, so you didn't see that I hadn't advanced it.
Yeah,
So
we'll go to the next one.
Yeah, come here.
All right, so let's talk about what we've already shipped. You know, so these are some of the things that we did this year that have shipped this year. We added Mac 64-bit client, Windows 10 support, sidebar plugin updates for connections. We've mentioned IMSO several times. We did update ICAA to 1.01. That is the replacement for the browser plugin. A lot of the browsers are moving away from the plugin technology, so we have moved forward with that similar type of product, just in a different offering called ICAA. You'll see on the next slide that we'll depreciate a Notes browser plugin probably with Feature Pack 8. On the Domino side, we've updated the currency, TLS 1.2, dedicated view thread, support for Microsoft proprietary files, so we've made some improvement on the calendar side. And then on the designer side, and I'm going to let Martin kind of get into this in greater detail, but he'll kind of describe our cadence here, where we will first start releasing to OpenNTF, and then we'll incorporate that into Feature Pack candidates. So Martin's going to cover that in great detail, so I'm not going to get into that in too much depth here. So if we can go to the next slide. So what you'll see on the next slide is that we're kind of moving to this new Feature Pack cadence. It's much more agile. It gives us a lot more flexibility in how we deliver these new feature packs. What we've done here is we're going by priority. I'm not going to show you the exact features for Feature Pack 8 and Feature Pack 9 yet. We're still locking that down internally. We've sized it. We're just looking for formal approval and timing. Once we have that locked down internally, I will be showing the content for Feature Pack 8. Probably in the next month. Feature Pack 9 we'll probably do at the beginning of next year, so we'll have a lot more details at Connect 2017. And what we'll do is we'll show you, we'd like to show you the content for the next two feature packs, and then what we'll show you is, the candidates that we have for future feature packs. So we've prioritized this, and this is based on application stuff as well, and you'll see that on the next slide, but I'm not going to go too much into depth in here. Take a look at this. I know you guys are probably going to take a screenshot, tweet this. If there are things that we are missing on here that you would like to see, you can tweet me, you can email me, and we can see how we can squeeze that in. Right now, Feature Pack 8 is pretty locked down. Feature Pack 9 is almost there. So we've got the next, say, 6 months fairly locked down. Once we have that committed, we will show that publicly. But what we are really focusing on is the application stuff first. That is a really high priority. And Uffe kind of mentioned earlier the application modernization strategy. This is phase 1 of that. You will hear more about that at Connect. We are going forward with that. It is moving a little bit slower than we would like. We had anticipated something in the fourth quarter, but this is phase 1 of that approach. You will hear much more greater detail on our application development strategy, which includes things beyond just updating the Notes Domino platform, but we have to do that first before we can do the other things that we would like to do and that we have planned. So we'll move to the next slide. Okay, so here we've got the server and application features that we're working on. So as you can see, the high priority items are all mostly application based. These are the things that we're really looking to get into the next feature packs, Feature Pack 8 and Feature Pack 9 to be specific. Then we'll have some of the lower priority things after that. I will also, Martin's going to get into some of the XPages and development specifics when we get to him. So take a look here. Obviously, Java 1.8 is the highest priority. That is something that we're looking to get into Feature Pack 8. I will state that here. It's not locked down, but that is our intent at this time, just to give you guys an idea of what we're thinking here. And as Uffe said, these are for planning purposes. Once we have it locked down, we'll communicate that externally. So I'm thinking, sometime in December, we'll have. we'll have the feature pack 8 content locked down and ready to communicate publicly. So if you want to go to the next page, Uffe. You know, Uffe mentioned the templates. The templates will be released as separate downloads. We're doing that because there are localization issues with that. So, you know, first you'll get the base languages, and then you'll get the other languages after that. It will be posted in FixPack Central. It will not be packaged with the FixPack installer. It will be a separate and optional download as well, and it's not going to be with every single feature pack you'll see a template update. It will be whenever we release something in a feature pack that requires a template update, you will see the templates released in conjunction with that particular feature pack. So, you know, it may skip a feature pack if there's work that we're doing that doesn't require a template update. So anything Java, those type of things, that will you know, go in the feature pack, and then anything that's associated with the template will be a separate install. So there's going to be one zip for English, and then we'll have the other languages as separate zips as well. Next slide. So here's just kind of a visual roadmap of the templates that we're looking at doing. So, you know, tentatively feature pack 8, feature pack 10, just to kind of show you the cadence. There may be some skipped as far as feature packs released, but this is just to kind of give you an idea of a timeline, a visual of what we just described. Next slide.
Yeah, so yeah, go ahead, Barry.
Yep, so this is, you know, Uffe's mentioned this, you know, really what we want to kind of show here is that, you know, with our continuous developments that we've shown you on the back end of the server, we've also got these front end client enhancements as well. We're really investing, you know, heavily in Notes and Domino from an application perspective, from a Verse On-premises perspective, from an IMSO perspective. You know, this has been a really busy year for us after a couple of not so busy years, and we anticipate 2017 to continue this really busy cadence here. So what this slide is just showing is that, you know, with your Domino infrastructure, whether you're in the cloud, whether you're on-prem, we're going to give you multiple options for how you access your mail. Next slide.
Yeah, the key thing here is really just showing that I mean, we have delivered on the bring your own client strategy that we started talking about a couple of years ago. And we have delivered on it, I think. So we provide this whole spectrum of capabilities, and now providing Verse both in the cloud and on premises. We completed all on the browser side, and also done the paradigm shift from having the rich client or the desktop as an integration type device to looking at the browser or mobile delivered experience as to being a holistic view to a number of services that you need to have access to. So I think this is pretty much what we wanted to cover on the high-level things on Notes and Domino and the roadmaps and what we're following. And we'd like to spend a few minutes now on diving more into the applications and Notes and Domino as an application platform. So I'd like to just spend 2 seconds first on the model. I know that a lot of you have seen me present this model before. I still do that because I believe it is a critical way of describing and understanding what it is we do. In all ways of doing applications, there's a spectrum of things that range from having, you know,
Uffe, if I can interrupt for a moment.
Applications are mission critical stuff in an organization, and I know that mission. Yeah.
Uffe, your
Yes?
sound is breaking up. I'm not sure if you've moved on from the bring your own client slide. Oh, it just refreshed now. So we're looking at the plus mail as you've never imagined it slide. But just so you know, your voice is breaking up quite a bit right now. I'm not sure if you have a connection problem.
Not that I know of, but I may have one I don't know of. How do I sound now?
Better. It's sounding better right now. Let's see, and your slides are refreshing. I think we're over it. Go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
good. You know what? Someone stepped on a wire somewhere. So on the application side, I mean, you have a spectrum of if you take the total set of applications in an enterprise, there's a spectrum of things ranging from your mission critical, core bread and butter, accounts receivable, inventory management, whatever it is, whatever your business is all about, and certainly also this whole idea of core applications is changing as we're seeing companies born in the cloud that start in a different way, but they still have this situation, this spectrum of capabilities, that there are some core things, and then there are a lot of ad hoc things, situational applications, that's done by people doing smart things, writing a macro for your spreadsheet, creating a little notes application and tweaking something on notes that some people still do to actually achieve a certain business purpose. And then this in the middle, this area of supporting applications, where we've had a whole ecosystem of partners and independent software vendors that have been working with Notes and Domino as an application platform for the better part of 15, 20 years. And that is an immense value that these people add to the platform. And also, the whole thing is what does this do for an organization? And this is where we sort of try to say that the sweet spot for Domino is not building your mission-critical accounts receivable applications. It's not necessarily doing the tweaking of a macro, but it's this whole spectrum of things where you share something with a number of users or have something for a specific line of business or a specific department that needs something done. And this is where Domino has a wonderful rapid application development model and deliver a unique time to value. And we still focus on doing that, and we're taking the steps now to modernize a way to do this and to take the existing platform forward into the future, both in terms of the platform and in terms of the tooling. Just to complete the picture of user experiences, what we do with the application side is that, yes, you can serve up XPages to browsers or to mobile devices, or you can actually have Notes. Notes in itself is an XPages runtime, so you can take your XPages applications offline as much as you don't use any of the data sources. They can actually work in your Notes client. But the whole point is that we also taking your client-server applications forward. So things that used to work on Notes and Domino as a client-server app can still work there, but could also work with the client application access, as we talked about earlier, and Barry also mentioned that we are making this the way to do client-server apps going forward rather than what we did with the browser plugin. So we have a stable way of delivering a slim, small footprint app to your Mac or your Windows desktop to actually run your client-server apps the way they looked, and they won't look different. They will behave exactly like they did, but they can still work. So this is a way of carrying your Notes Domino client-server applications into an environment, or for users use Outlook or users who use Verse, because they would still be able to run their client-server applications using this setup. So just summing up on the perspectives here, and then we switch over to the XPages discussion. We talk about some of the things we've done here. We will do much more and have a much more comprehensive picture to talk about at Connect 2017. But we're pretty much pushing down the road of also not only doing new email header capabilities, but also looking at the application side. To look further on what we're doing on the application side, I'd like to turn the word over to Martin, who's going to go through where we are with the XPages stuff and some of the very important things that we're doing going forward on XPages. So Martin, your turn.
Thanks, Uffe. If I could have the next slide then. I'll take my turn to talk about XPages, as you say. So there's been a lot of talk so far on feature packs, and the message here, of course, is that feature packs work very well with XPages. Why is that? Because we've had a mechanism for the longest time. Well, when I said the longest time, certainly back December 2011 would probably have been the first delivery of XPages technology between release cycles. So the map I'm showing you here actually kind of just encapsulates the model that we have for XPages development. You see you have two channels, if you like. One is the XPages core product, and that XPages was first delivered to Notes Domino 8.5, subsequently in 8.5.1 and 8.5.2. So in 8.5.2, it was important that we introduced extensibility features, and what that really did was it enabled third parties to contribute controls and data sources and all of the other XPages artifacts using the same mechanisms as we, the internal team, did. So it introduced extensibility. We continued to build a lot of stuff for the 8.5.3 release, and we just kept on building that. So whatever made it to 8.5.3 made it to 8.5.3. There was a lot of stuff became available on OpenNTF, became available after that, which we pushed into the OpenNTF channel below it, and at a point between 8.5.3 and 9.0 we delivered a sizable, I would think, over 70 new tags, I believe. So controls and data sources and so forth were delivered between 8.5.3 and 9.0. And so the model then became that whatever was delivered to the upgrade pack was folded into the next release, and for every major release we had, we took in the most recent version of the XPages extension library. So that was a very agile mechanism for delivering new content. It was very good, but not perfect, as we're about to see. Uffe, if you could move me to the next slide, that would be great. So, as I said, we were using OpenNTF as our vehicle for delivering that, and kind of proud to say both as a contributor and as a director of OpenNTF that we're hovering on the 90,000 download point for the XPages extension library, which is massive and continues to be today. So you can see that I've kind of augmented that diagram just a little bit here. When I said our model wasn't perfect, well, everything that we delivered via XPages in between releases had one requirement. The underpinnings had to be in the application layers below us. So it either had to be available in the core, C++, or Java APIs. So given that fix packs did not contain new features, essentially the only sync points for our XPages updates were the releases like 9.0 and 9.01. However, this is a game changer for us now that feature packs have come along and can contain new APIs. Then we can certainly release to OpenNTF things that are based on the new capabilities that would be embedded in the feature packs. So that gives us a whole new opportunity. You can see I gave some examples there at the top. So when we were talking about the next major release after 9.01, we had a lot of things in the pipeline. People are already using a lot of stuff that's out there on OpenNTF today that is post 9.01, things like Bootstrap, and we were able to deliver that because it really had no dependencies on Notes Domino core. It had everything that it needed was already in XPages, so the ability to create themes, etc., and to leverage the actual Bootstrap libraries. That XPages was extensible in that regard. If we take document encryption as a different example, we needed APIs there to be created for us in the Java there that would give us access to the user ID vault and the user ID itself. Because they simply were introduced to the core after 9.01, then that feature had to be held back to the next major release. So the idea here is that those APIs can go into feature packs going forward, and thus it would be possible for us to put things out there on OpenNTF and then to deliver them into feature packs in the same way as we've been delivering into major releases, major and minor releases up to now. So the model, if you like, I've drawn a little line between 9.01 and so forth, but the model continues in exactly the same way. If you can move me on to the next slide, that would be great. So the dual channel of early exposure through OpenNTF and then incorporation through feature packs will continue. So this effectively, even today now, gives us quite a rich pipeline. Back when Barry was presenting, he was talking about some fixed pack candidates on some of his slides, and you can see here on my right that since 901 shipped, we've had 17 releases of XPages extensions via the extension library on OpenNTF. So that amounts to quite a bit of stuff, right? So that includes RDBMS support, it includes Bootstrap capabilities, which have proven to be very popular, REST DAS enhancements, Bluemix tooling, and the community has also gotten in there and done some of their own features and fixes. So the sum of all those parts would be eligible as candidates for feature packs and can be delivered as such. Not to mention, as I say, the stuff that we had in our own internal pipeline. I've mentioned the encryption and decryption already, but we also had an initiative. We also had an initiative to open source more of the XPages controls, and through a kind of a quirk of history, I was looking at the path that I was exposing a little bit earlier on, where in 852 we made XPages extensible. Well, all the controls that were part of the core before that, of course, we added in over 70 new ones. So those new ones were all open source by nature, but the 70 existing ones, of course, are the previous candidates, of course, were sort of proprietary. And we would like to sort of undo that sort of quirk of history, as I've described it, and just make all of the XPages controls to be like one big extension library that can move forward together and can be enhanced and extended together. And there are other things as well in our internal pipeline that will enhance the iNotes calendar capabilities, both from a runtime and a design time capability. There's a swiper extension point. That work has already been done to improve the source control experience for users. And there's a bunch of I have an exercise that we must walk through at this point to go through our source control system and find all of the miscellaneous features and fixes that we've put in post 901. All of these, obviously, the sum of the parts amounts to a very rich total that are all eligible, as I say, and that's what we're working with Barry and Offering Management to see what ones can be contained in FixPack 8, FixPack 9, and beyond. So you'll notice on the right-hand side as well, right, you have this big long fancy numbers which can be very easily decoded, right? So you have 901, V00, and then so forth. So 901 refers to the Notes Domino release. V00 was something that we were embedding at the time to account for releases in between major cycles. So we probably envisage it as being an upgrade pack, but an upgrade pack and a feature pack are practically identical in nature. An upgrade pack would just have been XPages only, but feature packs, as we're now describing, is core and XPages, everything that's inside in the Notes Domino container. Any feature can be included there. So what this effectively means, the magic number that I'm looking forward to would be 901 V08, which would stand for FixPack 8, and then in 2017, at some time, we would very much look forward to the prospect of having extended XPages features from the list above, whatever ones we can contain in those releases going ahead. So if I can move forward to the next slide again, Uffe, please. So integrating into feature packs is actually, so far, sounds like an even better model than what we had before. It's more agile, a more frequent refresh cycle, less to do for folks in terms of installing the extension library constantly if it's going to be synced up with the feature pack releases. So therefore, depending on that cadence, it would be more agile. An open source contributor has an even faster way of getting their own favorite thing into a Notes Domino feature pack, because obviously XPages and the ability to contribute to that gives you a way in there to fix your favorite bug or implement your favorite feature. And we have already a governance model for looking after that, and people have done that successfully. So big opportunities there. We do have, of course, granular control over exactly what version of XPages you run. So under the minimum release required by XPages, you will see feature packs popping up in that release. And right now, you can see an example of something that was introduced in the second OpenNTF release as a new feature on the data view. That's on the right-hand side of the image there. You can see the infinite scroll capability that was introduced, and that's how we use this versioning numbers that I'm talking about. So my point here is simply that we've had this capability. It's been burned into our versioning and to our release model since 2011 and even a little bit before. It can be applied to feature packs. It gives us a good opportunity to rapidly iterate over the coming while. Are there some challenges? Yes, feature packs, of course, inherit from fixed packs and need ways of ensuring that language packs can handle our localization. We may need to invent a new way of delivering runtime string translations that's different to the language packs so that we can deliver features. And designer UI in the tooling may stay as English only for the time being. So there will be there are some challenges that we're working on delivering the best possible experience there in the short term. And I'm sure we will come up with solutions that are acceptable and overcome those challenges, or at least mitigate them to the greatest extent. So Uffe, if you could go to my final slide. I wanted to highlight, for me, all this talk about feature packs is absolutely fantastic. We can certainly do a lot with it. The high priority one that Barry pointed out to, of course, was the 1.8 upgrade runtime and ultimately the design time. As a candidate, that is a fantastic prospect, right? And I think the XPagers on the call here would certainly know why, because it's something that they've been requesting for quite a while. It addresses lots of issues. Obviously, with an Eclipse upgrade, we can take advantage of the Java 1.8 features. Under the covers in XPages, you have an XPage ultimately boils down to a Java class, and as users have grown in their sophistication and their use of XPages over time, they've taken advantage of managed beans and all of these things. So obviously the new capabilities of Java 1.8 can bleed through to all of the XPages artifacts, to Java agents themselves, to the Java design element that we introduced a couple of releases ago. All of those things have a direct Java benefit. But of course, there's the platform itself that is Eclipse, and all of the benefits that that it gives us that cause us to move and rebase Domino Designer on this to begin with. So the ability to pick up plugins like eGate and SCN and CVS and so forth for source control, ones that I know have caused pain for folks over the last number of years when the underlying Eclipse version was simply too old to accommodate the latest releases of those. And people have been quite rightly vociferous in highlighting these to us, and it is a panacea really that just takes care of a lot of issues of this nature. So from source control plugins to updated editors and tooling, we know there's a bunch of Bluemix tooling out there, for example, that requires both 1.8 and a more modern version of Eclipse that we can automatically just provide, or certainly look at doing that, and we had to work very hard, in fact, to provide Bluemix tooling today with our existing version of Eclipse and Java 1.6. And there's all the latest community projects. These are all the kind of advantages of moving to Eclipse in the first instance, and they all come back with fervor with the prospect of an Eclipse upgrade. Also, in the same bucket, I guess, OSGI components on the server and the ability to drop in components that require a modern implementation would once again be possible. So it's very exciting to think of the possibilities here. It's something that, as I say, we need to work with offering management and see how and when these things can be contained. But I think the story overall from an app dev perspective is a happy and healthy one. And I'm not sure who I need to transfer to next, but I'll sign off on that note.
Hey, thanks, Martin. This is Uffe. Just to wrap up. So I think that we have covered. I hope that you all believe and have heard that we covered what we set out to do, talking about the investments we're doing in Notes and Domino, talking about the Verse directions and the Verse on-premises set of capabilities, talking about the XPages and where we are expanding the whole platform as part of the whole application modernization directions. And we will come back with much more about the application stuff when we get to Connect 2017 in February. And I just want to sum up with two things very briefly, basically saying that we've had some milestones in the history of Notes and Domino. You all know we did, version 8 was a Hanover release when we introduced the rich client framework, where we had this whole focus on the client-side integration. We then did the social edition in later around the beginning of the teens, and the social edition was then, building a new way of driving social mail and integration with social capabilities. And what we're looking at right now is sort of the next step, which then really, and we truly believe, is becoming Domino the Verse Edition. So on that note, I want to leave you with the Verse Edition and all the things we do around that. And I think that now turn the word back to Howard, I guess, for managing the questions.
Yes, thanks, Uffe, and thanks, Barry and Martin. So we're up to our question time. So just a reminder, ask your questions in the GoToWebinar interface. There's a questions panel. And so we're ready for our first question. Before we get to the questions, I'm going to put up a slide. I won't go over any of these, but just some upcoming events that are going on across the world in terms of user events. So you can take a look at those, and if you're in that geographic area and you're interested, this slide will have all the links when you get those in the email. So we are up to some questions, and Paul, do you have the first question?
Yes, first I'm going to pick off a couple of questions that were answered privately, so you couldn't see those. So a question from Bill, can the client utilize Verse on iOS, Android, and Windows mobile devices? And Adam answered that earlier. Yes, Verse has a mobile application for both the iOS and Android devices. For Windows users, they would access via the web browser within the Windows mobile. And I have a new question from John. Can customers continue to run existing R9 mail template after Verse on-premise is installed? So this is Uffe.
I can answer that. Yes, and as a matter of fact, you must be on the Mail 9.0 template to even run Verse. And if you have modified the template, you should not have modified the iNotes parts of it because it's using some of those APIs. So as long as the iNotes is untouched, it works. But it's the 9.0 version it has to be on for Verse to actually work off that template.
Okay, thanks. Let's go on to the next question. This is from John. And does Verse on-prem require connection 5.5, or is that optional?
Yeah, so it is optional, but it is recommended. And it's really the requirement is the profiles and files portion. That is what would be recommended. We have customers who are in our beta program who have integrated blogs and other aspects of connections. But as of the announcement for the extension of the support of 901 through 2021, we also updated the entitlement to Connections 5.5. So all Notes and Domino customers are now entitled, which basically means if you're active on your SNS, you can go to Passport Advantage and just download the files and profiles portion of Connections. It is recommended to get the full benefit of Verse on premises to install that. It is not required, though.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Paul, are you ready for another question?
Yeah, question from Miguel. Can Verse on-premise be localized to a not integrated, I guess not supported language?
Yeah, so Verse on-prem will mirror the cloud version of Verse as far as what languages are supported. So any language that is currently supported in the cloud will be supported on-prem. That's the way we're going to do the languages. And then any future languages that are added to cloud will then be added subsequently to Verse on-prem. They won't be, immediate. We're still working out the cadence post-GA, but we're probably looking at least 2 to 3 times a year to update the on-prem release to kind of to catch up with a cloud version.
Okay, there's a couple platform issues from Reed and Paul. I'm going to combine these. First of all, in terms of the Red Hat Linux support, would that also include CentOS, which is based on it? And then there was also a question about SUSE Enterprise Linux. Will that not be supported based on what you said today? And finally, a question about a Windows 64-bit client.
Sure. So let me take those one at a time. So let me clarify. So any current OS that we support for 901 will be continued. So whatever 901 is currently supporting will be continued. If the for example, like XP, if Windows drops support for XP, we will probably follow that later on. So, that's something that we're coming up with. We're probably going to drop support for XP since Windows has dropped support for that. We will be adding Windows 2016 on the server side. As far as CentOS, if it's not currently supported, it will not be supported in the future. As far as SUSE, since Domino is currently supporting SUSE, it will continue to support SUSE. SUSE will just not be supported by any new offerings that we put in the market. So, for example, you see with IMSO or Verse On-prem, neither of those will support SUSE. And then the last question, I believe, was the 64-bit client. We don't have plans right now to port the Windows client to 64-bit, even though we did on the Mac OS. That was a requirement from the Mac side to do. So, we're looking forward to Verse On-prem as being the primary client. So that's probably where most of our investments are going to go from a client perspective. We will continue to support the 32-bit client on Windows and do enhancement through Feature Pack, but we don't have plans to do a 64-bit version of that.
Okay. Go ahead, Paul. I have a question from John. That's a lengthy one here. It's a licensing question. So
Paul, let's let Adam answer that privately. That's kind of a little unique, and move on because we do have a lot of questions lined up.
All right. Do you have one, Howard?
Sure. Greg wants to know, are there any plans for SAML authentication to support the Azure Active Directory?
I don't know at that time. We can take that offline and get that answered. I don't know the exact answer to that.
Okay. If you're not ready, Paul, I got another one.
Go ahead.
Kasaba has a question. I guess he has his hopes up that Watson Workplace is integrating with Slack, which uses WebSockets. Is there any chance that there'll be support for WebSockets in Domino?
Martin, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, just having trouble unmuting there. Well, certainly the upgrade would give us the opportunity to address the WebSockets issue. We haven't specifically looked at that use case right now, but we've heard it quite a bit, and I would regard it as an important request that we will evaluate.
Okay, I have a support question from Mark. Will there be MS Outlook support for Domino for IBM I?
At this time, we don't have plans for that, but it is something that we would consider based on market demand.
Okay, I have a question from Fu. I actually answered this based on your current IBM plan, but I want to throw it out there for you guys to comment, and also in case other people have the same question. Will feature packs be cumulative, or do you have to install one after another? I know right now they're cumulative, but are there any plans to go to a different model with this change in policy?
Martin, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so they're cumulative in the sense that, let's say, FixPack 9 would install on top of FixPack 8, and cumulative is the answer.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Just wanted to clarify, and also other people might have had that question. There was, I think this question was answered, but just in case, and I know there were a couple flavors of this, if they deploy Verse on-prem, can you still keep using Notes email?
Yes, so basically it's similar to iNotes, right? I mean, you can access the mail file with a Notes client. If you have Verse on-prem installed, you can access the mail file via iNotes. You can access the mail file via Verse. You can access the mail file via IMSMO. So, you know, it's not a hard requirement if you have Verse on-prem installed that that's the only way that you can access your mail. It's basically just another front end, you know, just via HTTP. It's just another option for your users. It's really how you roll that out to your users.
Yeah, if you remember the slide we showed about the open client strategy, all of these coexist. And you can use Verse Mobile, you can use Traveler, you can use Verse, you can use iNotes, you can use IMSMO at the same time against the same mail file. That's perfectly valid, as long as you have server resources enough to run it.
Okay, great. Do you have a question lined up, Paul?
Yeah, a question from Bill here. I have a client who uses many legacy Notes Domino applications. They'd like to go to the cloud, but they don't want to invest in XPages development. Can the ICAA client be used with their legacy apps?
Absolutely. That's the use case for ICAA. So that's what it was specifically designed to do, is to allow browser-based, well, you know, not browser, it is a standalone application, but to allow users to access those legacy Notes applications without a full, thick Notes client.
Okay, and so we have a couple, I'm going to kind of sum up a couple questions. First of all, an administrator designer client for the Mac, is that ever going to happen? And then also there was the web admin template. I think IBM kind of stopped updating it, and someone asked with these new template updates, is that going to be updated? I think that was originally recommended you to stop using it because of the Java applets.
So we're not focused on a Mac designer client at this particular moment. I think that it's all systems looking at the possibility of the work in front of us for Eclipse itself and getting an upgrade there. What other side opportunities come off of that, we'll deal with as we go forward. But not on our short-term radar.
Okay, and then any discussion on going back to a web admin client, or is that going to be basically all admin has to be done through the Notes/admin client?
Probably one for Barry. I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it is in the plans. I'll have to go back to the template team and ask them. I don't think it is in the plans. I think you'll probably keep with the thick client.
Okay, Paul, do you have a question lined up? I think we can probably do two more.
Okay, I have a question here. Are there any plans to upgrade XPages implementation to JSF 2.0?
Hi. So this question has come up quite a bit. So In terms of numbers, no. So we're technically on a number called JSF 1.1, and if you look at the feature set that's available in JSF 2.0, it purports, well, obviously there's a lot more called out than that. Now, for various reasons, legal and otherwise, we would have had difficulty moving or taking in a new version of JSF, but because we were licensed to update our existing version of JSF, we effectively put the bulk and even some extra features into the version of JSF that ships with XPages. So from a technical standpoint, many of the same features are actually in XPages, but there is a number disconnect there. I remember at one stage we had a chart that compared XPages JSF implementation with 2.0, and they are very, very comparable.
Okay, thanks, Martin. And this will be our last question because I think we're already past the noon hour. Will Verse be supported in a Citrix environment?
Citrix, so that's usually on the client side. So Verse would be accessed via a browser, you know, and whatever. If the browser is supported in Citrix, then Verse would be supported in Citrix as well. I don't know if that's something that we've tested in our use cases so far. So we'll have more information on exactly what is supported when we go GA.
Okay, thanks, Barry. And I think we're over time, so I'd like to thank Barry, Uffe, and Martin for coming today. We've had a lot of questions, and perhaps you know, we'll send the questions on to the IBM team, and maybe they can you know, get those answered in a document, or we could send those out in our email or a link to a website or whatever, you know, a blog post or something, if you guys want to respond to some of these, you know, in a when you have, you know, when you're able to get to, you know, some of the ones we weren't able to get to. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today, and thank my co-hosts Courtney and Paul, and then Nigel today for contributing to the webinar today. And thank again everyone for attending, and I hope the rest of your day or evening goes wonderful.